Welcome to the Vibrant Guide podcast, where we explore the inspiring stories and insights of individuals who have turned challenges into opportunities for growth and success. I'm your host, Anna, and today I'm thrilled to introduce a guest whose journey is a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the power of community. Samara Beth is an award-winning event planner, best-selling author, and a highly sought-after speaker and business coach. With a career spanning over 30 years, she has transformed numerous venues into ideal retreats and event facilities through her company, Samara Beth Co. But Samara's journey is far from ordinary. Having lived in 13 cities and 30 homes, mostly as a military spouse, she's become an expert in building supportive communities and navigating life's challenges with grace and determination. Her experiences have not only shaped her professional expertise, but have also fueled her passion for empowering others. From being recognized as Volunteer of the Year to inspiring audiences with her contagious energy and practical insights, Samara Beth's impact on those around her is undeniable. Today she joins us to share her incredible journey and the lessons she's learned along the way. Samara, welcome to the Vibrant Guide podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Anna. This is so amazing. This is a very cool platform.
Yeah, I'm so excited for our conversation. So kind of just to start, Samara, can you start, by sharing a little bit about your early life and what initially inspired you to pursue a career in event planning and coaching?
Yeah, so I wanted to become an event planner. My mom produced conferences, and we entertained a great deal at the home. And so everything was always a big deal. And so I loved doing that, and I wanted to be able to do it, but combine my public relations major and my journalism. It was public relations in the College of Journalism major at University of Maryland. I wanted to bring that into light too. So I was going more on the events for the more corporate at the time, and then I in time went into social events and such. But I just loved entertaining. Even in high school, I was planning the junior ski trips. I was doing the prom decorations and all that stuff. So it's just who I am.
That's awesome. And you've lived in 13 cities and 30 homes, mostly as a military spouse. So how have these experiences really influenced your approach to life and business?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that is not an easy life to have, especially if you're an introvert. I'm an extrovert, but I was insecure because I didn't feel like I would fit in the different environments. And when I was planning corporate events in New York City for a top corporate event planning destination management company in New York that's still there, longest running, and then I was a Navy spouse, and I didn't feel like I fit into that world, so I ended up leaving that company. Ultimately, I was working for them as a contract worker, but I ended up leaving them to get a job working with the Pampered Chef because it was something that the military spouses really related to more. And so I felt like I was living like this double life: fast life in New York City, slow life in the South. We also lived in the South with the Navy. We were in Florida and South Carolina and Hawaii, and it's just a slower lifestyle. So I just felt like my fast pace, quick talk in New York City style didn't fit in. So there were a lot of transitions. For my son, it was challenging. He was born in Florida, 6 weeks old when we moved to Hawaii. And then he was diagnosed with autism at 14 months old, or 13 months old. And so that was very challenging living in Hawaii. I owned my own company with the Pampered Chef. I had my own business, and I was running that while having a child, who wasn't, who was working with having treatments every day. So that was hard too. Listen, Anna, no matter what, making new friends in a new place is always hard. But, you just have to figure out your place. And it's hard for me to go back to Baltimore where I grew up because they all kind of married each other and they're in their same groups and they're amazing and they have this awesome life together. And I envy that too. So you just have to make choices and kind of go with it and see where life takes you.
Yeah, I feel like that's so important, making those choices. There's so many different, paths that you can take. So really, making the best of every situation is so important. So, having moved so much, what role has community played in your life, especially in those, areas of change in your life?
So I am a joiner, and being a joiner is key to networking. I actually developed a course, Networking with Intention, or Networking Your Way to Wealth, whichever direction you want to go with it. But it's all one and the same in a sense, where you kind of have to create a village and a community wherever you go. And when you're in the military, it's a little easier because that community is already there for you. But we didn't live on base ever. We always lived off base. We always lived with civilians. We always lived with other branches near us. So we made friends with people in all walks of life, which I love, and I became a chameleon, and I really enjoyed that part of it, of making new friends from all over the world, because we lived in US and Canada, but there were also people who were traveling, the world where we were. So we made a lot of international friends. And so it opens your eyes up to what else is out there.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have any tips for, making friends and finding your people in all of these different places?
So when I was moving my businesses, I was always joining groups. So networking groups are key, and I'm a member of many, and I've sat on boards with some of them. It's hard to be on the boards when you're in so many different groups, which I am. So I try to really branch out instead of sticking to just one organization as my main one. So as an event planner, because I now have an event production company again, so as an event planner, I definitely attend industry organizations, networking events, summer meetings, summer events, summer conferences and conventions. Then, as a mom, I was attending the moms groups. I'm active in my religious organizations, so I would go to my synagogues and things like that. And the award that I won, the Volunteer of the Year award, was actually there. I was on the boards. I was doing fundraising, philanthropy. I've always done fundraising and philanthropy. I've always chaired events. When you're an event planner, it's kind of an occupational hazard. Everyone asks you to do that. So I did that for all the schools, whether it was private schools or public schools for both my children. And so that was always a great opportunity for me to meet so many different people too. Some were neighbors, some were, you also, when you have kids, you make friends with the kids' parents. So that kind of happened. And because I was the party planner, at the time, planning events, social events, I hosted a lot too, so.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I feel like that advice of joining all of these different groups is definitely so helpful. Like, it's better to join a bunch than just, stick to one little thing and hope that works. So that's awesome. And, as the founder of Samara Beth Co, what have been some of the most rewarding aspects of, transforming venues into retreats and event spaces?
So, they used to say about me, that Samara can create something out of nothing, and it's true. I've taken parking lots and turned them into big events.
Wow.
I've turned disc jockeys, like a DJ's warehouse, into a big event space. I've turned grounds into massive carnivals. And so it's just a matter of having a creative eye and kind of getting an idea of, okay, where can we put this? Where can we do this? I will say that the most important aspect is power. Power sources. So where are all the outlets? Where can we do this? What are the rules? What are the regulations? And what is it we're not allowed to do? Because if it's not listed as something we're not allowed to do, we can do it. It's open. It's open to do. So I also do a lot of venue consulting because I've been producing events for so long that people were building restaurants or venues or retreat centers or Airbnbs and turning it into retreat centers. And then they hire Samara Beth Company to come and do full-blown walkthroughs and analysis and take a look and see how to create this into event spaces, whether it's for weddings or corporate or team building or retreats. So I do a lot of that work too, and I really enjoy it because you get to, really help people. I mean, you're helping people take their home or their property and turning it into something that is really lucrative.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, what are some ways that you really hone in on your creativity? Like, do you have any, ways to really make someone more creative?
So when somebody comes, I used to do a ton of theme events, like a lot of theme events. And so when I'm doing theme events, which is really my favorite, it's very fun.
Yeah.
You take that and you go into Pinterest and you watch. I mean, I did a Harry Potter theme event, and so I said, "Kid, we're gonna have to binge watch Harry Potter from start to finish." Sorry, and they're like, "Yay!" So I was sitting there with a notepad taking notes, and then took those creative ideas, went onto Warner Brothers website in their shop, bought the things that I could, get within the client's budget, and then for the rest, I created myself. And that part is really fun. It's really taking a theme and integrating it into the space and really bringing the client's vision and light to life, because it's not about me, it's about them and what they want. So whether I'm working with a 13-year-old who's getting bar bat mitzvahed, or a bride and groom, or a corporate client, or for a gala, nonprofit, it's all one and the same. It's really listening to what they want and then making it happen. And so we get creative, but so do our creative vendors, our prop companies, our decor companies, going to the linen houses, the rentals, all those things, all those elements, the lighting, all of that is included in it. And then same with the activation stations, which makes it very engaging. So it doubles up as decor, engaging, party favor. So you got to get really creative when it comes to budgets too.
Oh, yeah, I bet. And what are the key elements that make an event truly memorable and impactful?
Well, it depends on what their goal is. And so I do ask the client, what is it your goal is? What is your objective of producing this event? And then I kind of provide value on ways that we can make that happen. And so everybody's goals are going to be different. Everyone is going to want to have a different outcome. And so what I need to do as an event producer and a creator is to figure out ways that that would be memorable as well. So whether you're having an Instagram wall where it's like a mosaic and it has all these photos that are being printed out, but then it becomes or it's digitalized, so it's a digital wall with all the Instagram photos, and then people can have pictures of that, and then they can post it onto their social media. So we do branded events because branding is everything. It doesn't matter, even if it's a social event, you brand the event. We do custom logos. We do a name for the event, whether it's a retreat or a social event or corporate event. And so we integrate the colors, the graphics, the logos, the branding throughout the entire process. So when people are taking photos at the event and the professional photographer and videographer are capturing those events, that's being utilized and repurposed in a gazillion ways. I mean, Anna, you have a podcast, so you know there's how many ways to repurpose this podcast if you really want to.
There's so many different ways, like countless,
Countless,
So, yeah, that's
right.
an amazing approach because, like taking those big things, then repurposing them to like make a million different things is something that can really, make an event super memorable. So I love that. So that's really an awesome approach. And, you've been recognized as Volunteer of the Year. How has volunteering shaped your career and personal growth? Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that's my award. All my awards are up here on the wall.
Oh, I love that.
So, being volunteer in the year was actually was like a dream. Like didn't even think was imaginable. My children being military, moving around so much that we didn't get paid as much as we would have probably if we went right into corporate America. And because I had to keep moving my businesses, I had to keep restarting. That costs a lot of money. To do restarts. I mean, every time you install cable again, you're paying a lot more money. Buying new vehicles, rejoining all these organizations in different states or even countries, like that's all adds up a great deal. And so, in full honesty, my kids were in private school for a good part of their lives, and we would get scholarships. And with those scholarships, I felt, okay, I really appreciate this scholarship. Here's what I can do to pay you back in a different way. I'm going to raise, thousands and millions of dollars, being your philanthropy chair, your fundraiser chair, sitting on all these boards, being the room parent, doing all those things. And in doing that, I was able to bring a lot more money to those companies, to those schools, than I would have otherwise. So it made me feel good that I was able to do that because I always felt guilty about applying for scholarships, but it got to a point where it just had to be what had to be. And so private schools are expensive. And I also lost a son, and that was a very costly thing that happened to us before my daughter was born. And so all these things, all these medical bills and all this stuff, it adds up. So my way of giving back was by volunteering. And so when I won the award, it was right before I was moving from Houston to Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. And I was so upset about moving. I did not want to go. I was devastated. We had never lived anywhere more than 3 years. We lived in Houston. Even though we were in different parts of Texas, we were there for 8 years. And so I was devastated, and I won that award right before we moved. So it was like my last shot anyway of winning something in Houston. So it was very exciting.
Yeah, well, that's an amazing reward to get. So congratulations on that.
Thank
you. Kind of transitioning to, overcoming some of the challenges in your life. So, your journey does have some overcoming significant hurdles, such as your son's health issues. So how did you find the strength to navigate these challenges while also, maintaining all of your businesses and doing so much,
Yeah. I was a new mom with a newborn baby who was very sick from the start. Our family at the time was on the East Coast. We were in Hawaii. It was very hard. And I felt very alone, but we were fortunate for two things. One being in the Navy, because the Navy, takes on we have free medical. The second was because there was a lot of doctor's appointments, there was a lot of trainings, there was a lot of things. The second part is the state of Oahu, Honolulu, Hawaii, they were amazing because they had a program at the time. I don't know what they have now, but they actually paid for the services, which was 5 people in my home every day, Monday to Friday, and that went on for years. And they were different therapists, and they were working with him to get him, to mainstream him. So when we ended up getting out of the Navy, we were also in the middle of the war on top of everything else. And when we got out of the Navy, it was to move to Texas and to get into the oil industry. And so that was a total different transition. And I'll say I had more support for my son in Hawaii than I did in Houston. When it came to services, we did not receive any in Texas, and that was disappointing. So he got mainstreamed, and we did a great job with that. It took time. It was diligence. It was a lot of tears. And then we just kept going. And every year he would be with a teacher, and we wouldn't tell them about his diagnosis. We kept it out of the file. And then we'd get called in for parent-teacher conference. We're like, here we go, it's time. And then he didn't know. He didn't know he had autism until he was graduating high school the year of. We finally told him so he could, but that's a whole long story. Honestly, we moved from Canada to Scottsdale to get him into a private school for kids on the spectrum. He graduated with a 4.0. He was student of the year with his teacher. He has a girlfriend, and he's going to university as a junior. He's transferring in as an astronomy major this weekend.
Wow, that's like an amazing success story.
So there's a whole story in there, but that's the short of it. So I got through it because I had the support in Hawaii, and I got through it because we did make great friends in Texas, and he made a great friend group, and that friend group stayed with him for years and years and years, which was fantastic. So
that's amazing. What an amazing success story. And tying back to community being a big part of that success, that's awesome to hear. So, what advice would you give someone who is currently, facing significant challenges and feels overwhelmed?
Okay, well, everyone, you're not alone. We're all overwhelmed right now. It's an election year. It's a crazy, unique election year. Our economy is insane right now, and there are wars breaking out all over. And there's fear. There's a lot of fear right now. There's fear of World War III. Which my family are all Holocaust survivors. So we know from World War II very well. Not so well, but we know it. And so and my mom was an immigrant. She came through Ellis Island at 2 years old. She was born in Germany. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that we can relate to. That are going on in the news. As far as moving a company around, moving your kids around, having a child that you bury and who had giant omphalocele, it's a whole long story in itself. Having a son with autism, having a daughter who was a preemie, who almost died actually a couple times herself. So we have all these things, these challenges, and all these crazy wild things that happen in your life. But what gets you through it is knowing that you're actually going to get through it. And so one of the nicknames that I was given, I was actually going through a divorce after 22 years. So I haven't been single all that long. And one of the things that I was named, I have a lot of nicknames. This one is Lil Bamboo, as in little, but Lil, Lil, apostrophe Bamboo. And he named me that. He was a coach. He named me that because I'm very resilient. And having resilience it's a survival technique. It's a positive survival technique. It's showing, okay, you're going to go through a lot of things. There's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be big humps on your camel, but you are going to get through it. Now, the key to that is, number one, having the right people surrounding you. So you want to have a community that is there for you when you hit rock bottom, because you might. And you might hit rock bottom more than once. And people's rock bottoms are all very different. It's not always an alcoholic or a drug rock bottom. There's many rock bottoms. And the suicide rate is really high. And COVID did not help that at all. At all. My kids are COVID babies too. And it's there's so many factors that have impacted the last generations. And generational trauma is a real thing. And we have to be very conscientious to make sure that we can overcome that at the same time as overcoming everything else. So generational trauma that goes through your ancestors, and it keeps getting passed down, and they're not always positive things. There's things that you're like, God, I wish I didn't do that. I sound like my mother or my father or my grandmother or whatever. And sometimes you'll have a spouse or a child who will say, you sound just like, and you're like, man. So you just kind of have to kick some of that stuff to the curb. But I would say community. I would say have a career that you're passionate about. That's why I do events. People don't go into event production because of the money. There's very few people who are multi millionaires at event producers. It is a very weekends, holidays, a lot of things that you miss out on, but it's very rewarding too. So find something that you're passionate about, that you're rewarded. I've actually tried to run away from the events industry a couple times, and it pulls me back in every time. So even COVID, I closed my company after 12 years. I had Celebrations by Samara. I had to close it down during COVID. I'm like, well, we're all gonna die. Might as well close it down. I'm in the red, And because I lived in Canada right before we moved to Arizona, January 2020, and the U.S. is like, we're not giving you unemployment. You lived in Canada. I'm like, so nobody gave me unemployment. So it was kind of like, okay. So you just kind of, all right, I'm just going to keep going. Just going to keep going, figure out what I want to do. I started a podcast and a nonprofit. My daughter started a business at age 9. We ran that business together. She was a how-to baker. So, that was her passion. She loved baking. She wanted to decorate. You just take it and you roll with it and you see what happens. It doesn't always work out, but you got to do the best you can to make sure it does.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. And, I feel like finding your passion is so important and, being resilient, which is a big theme that I feel like you've talked about. So, as a coach and an author, how do you inspire and empower others to embrace their journey with confidence and resilience?
Well, I share those stories, but I also make it more about them. So when you're coaching someone, it's about asking the right questions so that they come up with the answers.
I see.
Like therapy almost, but
Yeah.
not getting into that all those hats that we wear. So when you're coaching somebody, that's the key. The key is to have the steps, to have your script, which I script what I say to people because I want to make sure that I touch upon whatever it is they really need, but I customize and personalize it with them. I just want to make sure that I'm consulting less and coaching more. And I say that because I've been a consultant for 30 years. So when you put on the coach hat, it's very unique. Don't you think, Anna?
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's all
Yeah.
about the questions.
Yeah, no, exactly. All about the questions, learned that from my podcast. So kind of just to transition, you've written several books and you're a celebrated keynote speaker. What kind of inspired you to start writing? And, how do your books reflect your life experience?
So it's funny because I've been interviewed and written about in many books and magazines and such. And I have a book, have a book called Human Empowerment, which is with Habitude Warriors Publishing. And that's Eric Swanson and John Kovacs. And they have me in a 3-book series as a co-author with other authors who are incredible. You wouldn't believe these stories. It's incredible. This is one of many book series that they have produced with co-authors, especially they used to be all in person with masterminds and speaking. They're part of the Napoleon Hill group and have just the best of the best. Eric was raised by Brian Tracy. We frequently get to be with Laura Langmeyer and Sharon Lecter and all these incredible people. Mark Victor Hansen, who's part of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Like all these people you may not realize, but you do know. So the books on human empowerment, it was supposed to be published in August, but we had a meeting this week. It's coming out in September. And then the second book will come out and the third book will come out. My chapter is actually due this week, so I'm working on that. And it's on the different pillars of human empowerment. So when that comes out, you definitely want to grab it. And it will be on Amazon. And we also go to Barnes & Nobles and book signings and things like that. Then I'm also working on retreat books, which are your how-tos and different retreats. And hopefully that will be published soon, working on that, just final edits. And then we also have the other books that I'm working on, which are a different type of stories. It is more about my life and but it's really not about me. It's about how I can help other people. go through what they're going through. So it's a combination of the human empowerment, but it's way more. So there's that. And then I'm also working on telling the story of my grandparents, which is pretty amazing. The Holocaust, they were two of 26 in the Holocaust. 6 survived, 20 were murdered. They watched their mother and baby stepsister was shot when they got off the train, and they watched all that. And so their story is a story of beauty and love. And so it's taking something beautiful out of such a horrible story.
Wow, I love that. And it's amazing how many different topics that you write about. And especially the Holocaust one, I feel like that one is so, so, so important to write about, especially in these times. So that's amazing. And, what topics are you most passionate about, writing about and speaking about?
So when I speak on stages, I speak about helping people with events and networking and those kinds of things. I do have a couple courses. Kidetiquette's a kids etiquette course. Entertaining etiquette is for the adults. I've taught that in person. It's really fun. And then I also have Networking Your Way to Wealth, which is another one that I do virtually, but in person is definitely more fun and engaging. And the thing with these presentations is they can be a 3-day, they can be a 1-day, they could be a 2-day, they can be an hour. They all have been manipulated into different times, different platforms. So that is always, a challenge, but interesting. And then speaking about the resilience, Little Bamboos. So that part is really more of the passion because it's the true stories. It's the things that give you goosebumps. Planning events doesn't give me goosebumps. Being there and being engaged and being with the individuals, that part, that's really that's me. It's who I am. It's my whole life. It's like my life's work. Producing events, my favorite thing is when the clients walk into the room and their jaw drops and they all hug me. Like that to me, okay, so I just got goosebumps. So I guess events do give me goosebumps.
Yeah, I love that.
The
Yeah.
other thing though, Anna, as a speaker is you need to be able to take the topics that you speak on and
Mhm.
maneuver them into anything.
Mhm.
So I can speak at any conference or convention because I can take any of my topics and I can kind of maneuver it into the amount of time that they need me to speak on and
Mhm.
what. And I cannot believe I forgot to tell you this. So I have a course. It's called Retreat Revenue Masterclass. It's called Paid to Vacation. It teaches
Mhm.
people how to get paid to go on vacation by producing retreats. It can be
Mhm.
social retreats or corporate retreats. You can have any career. And I've done so many different kinds of retreats and events, so it's very exciting. And it's a global program. So you can either hire me to do the whole thing, or you can take my 6 weeks to launching a retreat program, which is virtual, and people can join in and I'll actually give you a discount code so that your listeners can get $1,000 off the program.
Oh wow, yeah, that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
it's usually $19.97, but so it'll just be actually I think it's even more than that. I'll do it for $4.97. So $9.97 would even be higher, but for your listeners, I'll do it for $4.97. They just have to put the code into the URL. So I'll give you the landing page website, and I'll give you the code that they just enter in. You can put that in your list.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And Samara, being so accomplished and doing so many different things, how do you balance it all?
So when the kids were little, now they're 14 and 20, but when the kids were little, I was very conscientious in volunteering and sitting on boards in places that either helped my kids or helped the organizations that we were all part of, and I got to see them. So when I was volunteering for the nonprofit organizations and for the clergies and for the whole facility, which was like over 6,000 people or whatever, I would get to see my kids because their school was attached to the building. When I was a room mom, I got to be part of anything that was involved with my children. When I produced the Grandparents' Day events, that was for my parents and for my husband's mother who was, living in there. And then it was for my kids because they got to be there too. So everything that I did was either for my kids' school, for organizations that they were a part of, or for anything that really involved them. So I really didn't volunteer as much in the event industry until later because my kids were my main focus. And when you're on a board for an event organization and certain networking events, you have to attend every single event. And I couldn't guarantee that I would be at every evening event because my kids came first. I also worked remotely since 2000, which is rare.
Hmm.
Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got married in 2000. I was in New York City 9/11. He was at the Pentagon. It was a very
Wow.
troubling thing to live through, and I remember it like
Hmm.
it was yesterday. But I will say that that also made a huge change in my career and my mindset because I was in the Navy, and his submarine did deploy right after that. So that's when I really started thinking, do I care about the linen count on the napkins for the share owners event for, Coca-Cola, or do I care more whether or not, my husband at the time, was safe? It started to and what would happen was the boat would break, and then he would show up in Florida at our house, and he would call me. He's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "Why are you home? I'm in New York City working for 3 weeks." And I didn't get to see him, and he went out the next day. So a lot of that would happen. So it's like you balance your family and your career, and you just figure stuff out, you know?
Yeah, I feel like figuring it out along the way is, a message that you've reiterated that's so important. So, a lot of my listeners are people that are just starting their journey into, finding careers that align with their passion. So, what advice do you have for them to, find things that they love and actually do the thing?
Yeah, so when you're figuring out what your passion is, I think COVID was big on this. People were big on their
Hmm.
passion projects. So when you're figuring out what your passion is, or if you already know what your passion is, let's say it's art. So if you love art and you're good at it, you got to be good at it too. If you love art and you're good at it, then the best place for you might be to have an art party type company, or maybe you're working at a gallery, or maybe you're doing tours. You're a tour guide for museums. So there's just, or you're working at auction houses. So there's just so many things that you can do. And these days we have AI. So Anna, the joy of AI, and I am actually studying to be an AI consultant, not because I consult with it as much as the fact that I integrate it in my business every day already. And I certainly teach people how to do that. So it's an added value for me in my career path, and it's not going away. It's just not. So if you're like, okay, I want to be an artist, but I really need to make $60,000 a year, let's say. Plug it into ChatGPT 4.0, baby, and just ask it. You just have to prompt it properly. This is you have to talk to it like it's ChatGPT is you. So you are an artist. You have a degree in art history. You love doing art with multiple mediums, including da 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 da. You want to make $60,000 a year. You just graduated college. What are some entry level career paths or jobs for me to apply to? And what are some opportunities for me and options for me if I want to start my own business? Boom. Hit submit.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because people that are using ChatGPT and are using AI in their business and just in their life in general, they're the ones that are getting ahead of the curve. Like, I think that AI is such a game changer. And, I don't think it's going to take jobs. I think the people that know how to use AI are going to be the ones that are taking the jobs. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is stay ahead of the game. So I'm part of an AI program with an AI expert. He actually
Hmm.
trains Tony Robbins' team and people.
Wow.
He goes to Richard Branson's Necker Island and trains everyone from Virgin. So he is he is definitely an expert. He's a good, amazing coach of mine. He coaches me with some other things as well, whether it's speaking as well as business. So we do a lot with them. And we do a lot of masterminding and networking too. And people fly in from all over the world to be with them. It's a husband and wife duo to be with them. And here in Arizona, they live like 15 minutes away. The funny thing is, the world works in miraculous ways because they were my coaches first before we realized that his parents are friends of my parents until my dad's funeral when they showed up. And I was like, wait a minute. I just put two and two together. I knew his parents this whole time, but I didn't know they were his parents. I just thought they had the same last name. I didn't think anything of it. So it's just it's a small world, girl. You just get out there and live it, and you'll see how small it is. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
When I travel globally, I meet people that know people all the time. It's the weirdest thing, but it just happens.
Oh yeah, no, everyone is so connected. It's crazy. I mean, I'm already seeing it. Like being in college, like I meet people from different states, and I'm like, oh, we actually have so many mutual connections. This is kind of crazy. So yeah, I definitely see that a lot.
So where are you at school?
And I go to University of Illinois.
Oh, wonderful. A lot of people from
Yeah.
Illinois have moved to Arizona since COVID, so I have a lot of friends from Illinois.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
Yeah,
what
I
is
mean,
your
I wish I was
major?
down in Arizona. I'm majoring in marketing and entrepreneurship.
Fantastic. Good for you. You're in the right
Thank
place and you're
you.
doing a great job.
Thank you so much. And what's next for you, Samara? Like, are there any upcoming projects or goals that you're excited about?
I don't stop. Okay,
I love
project.
that.
So, well, the books. We just talked about the
Mhm.
books. Um,
Yes.
the books are also, in fact, today, this evening, because today's crazy, but I actually need to record my first audiobook, and I've never done that before. So,
Well, that'll be exciting.
well, here's the funny thing is I don't like my voice at all. So I'm like, someone else is going to have to listen to it and tell me.
No, I mean, I like your voice, even from speaking for this podcast. I think it'll be great. Yeah.
So, we all don't like everything about ourselves, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I was a journalism major and PR. It
Hmm.
was PR in the college of journalism, and I did learn how to write in
Yeah.
that way. It's fact writing. It's different. I
Hmm.
have written articles for magazines that have been published, and I
Yeah.
am writing books, and I've realized that I actually have a talent for it. I just read it. I read
Hmm.
that the final edits from the production team was sent to me, and I'm like, this is actually pretty good. So I'm going to continue on that journey. So if you say, Samara, what is your top ultimate dream goal? I want to be a TED Talk speaker, and I will be. I'm well on my way. I have the connections. I just need to have it in here. And so being a TED Talk speaker, that is actually my goal by the end of 2025. But I have a feeling it'll probably happen sooner. But in addition to that, I want to be a keynote speaker, speaking on stages, helping people get through all the challenges and be resilient. And I am really great for speaking on stages of multi-level marketing companies, conventions and conferences because I did that already. I used to do that with my Pampered Chef business. I was a top recruiter. Pictures were like all over these massive banners. My mom came to an event. It was at the Dallas Convention Center. And I was like, whoa. That was huge. I had never seen myself like that before. I was like, wow. And it was all over the convention center. And I was speaking on stages in front of 3,000 people there. And at the time, I was a horrible speaker. In fact, it was a VHS tape that they gave me just to date that one. And we watched it when I got home so my dad could see it. And I literally went into the trash can and just threw it away. I was like, that is horrible. And I'll tell you why. It's because it was the first time I spoke with a teleprompter. And I talk really fast. And I
Hmm.
talked even faster back then because I lived in Hawaii, I believe, at the time,
Yeah.
or Houston, but I was still a New York City girl. And
Yeah.
so it was crazy because I was talking really, really fast and they edited my entire presentation in addition to that. So it didn't really sound fully like me. And I was, okay, I'll slow down. So the dress rehearsal, they told me to slow down. So I was like, okay. So then I get on stage and I spoke too slow.
No.
I sounded horrible. And I
Oh
go back
no.
down afterwards. I go
Hmm.
and sit with my whole team and I go, how was it? They're like, it was good. It was just a little slower than you usually speak. But, I'm much better now. You got to practice. That's my advice. Practice, practice, practice. Practice your pitch.
Hmm.
Rewrite it, rewrite it, rewrite it. If you have to use AI to do all that stuff, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it. Just use your words and you put your words into Chat GPT and you have to train Chat GPT too, by the way, Anna. You have to train it to sound like you. You have to
Hmm.
train it to act like you, to be like you. And so in order to do that, you have to constantly use it. You have to
Hmm.
say, I wrote this and put it in there and say, this is what I wrote back here. Because
Hmm.
that's how it sounds like you. Otherwise it just sounds like someone else.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna use it, you have to use it wisely. Um,
Right.
so that's my advice on that. And practice everything. Practice your speeches, practice your pitches, practice your elevator pitches. your 30-second, your 60-second. Have it ready. Have your bios ready. What did I say to you when we first, when you booked this podcast with me? Do you remember? When you asked
That's
for
a
my
while ago.
bio?
I think you sent me your bio.
And what did I ask you when you asked for my bio? Do you remember?
What topic do you want it to be on?
That's right. So
Yeah.
I said I have 3 topics I speak on.
Mhm.
So, and then I asked you which one you wanted, and you picked resilience. And so I sent you the resilience bio. It's already ready to go in PDF. And
Mhm.
then we have photos as well that you keep handy and keep it all in a file. Be ready. Always
Mhm.
be ready. That is the most important thing. I say this to my kids all the time. I'm like, Ava, you need to take a shower. You need to always be ready. We don't know what's going to happen. What if a friend calls and says, I'm picking you up. Let's go out. Let's go to the mall. Or let's do this or let's do that. Or what if we go to my mom's and she needs us to do this, this, and this? You need to wear the right shoes. Like, always be ready. That's my advice.
That's amazing advice. And where can my listeners connect with you and hear more about your work?
Oh, thank you. SamaraBethCo.com is
Mhm.
S-A, Mary, A-R-A, B as in boy, E-T-H, that's my middle name,
Mhm.
and is written out A-N-D, co.com. And when
Mhm.
you go to SamaraBethCo.com, when you go to the press section, it will show you some of the press. I tried to keep more recent stuff on there, so the older stuff isn't really on there. But you'll see links to different podcast interviews. You'll see YouTube podcast interviews, and then there's a lot of links below those, which is all the links of interviews that were not video. And then you'll also see my original podcast called Camcast. Camcast was off of the Cam Project Kid Action Makers, which was a nonprofit my daughter and I had started during COVID. And so those are older. I don't record anymore. Those are older. You can always listen to them and get great advice from kidpreneurs and entrepreneurs that have overcome a great deal of adversity, like heavy stuff. But it is for teens and up, and I even interviewed some teens. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And thank you so much, Samara, for joining us in this week's episode of the Vibrant Guide podcast. It was incredible hearing your amazing story and all of your advice. And you're such an accomplished person, so it was so great hearing that. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into this week's episode of the Vibrant Guide podcast. I will see you all next week.